All right, welcome in, Ethan Skolnick, starting five on the Five Reasons YouTube channel. I have a new computer, so bear with me. We might actually get to modern technology at some point here someday. Our producer today is Manny Chang. We always appreciate his help, heading off to work himself. We know some of you are doing that. I want to tell you about our sponsors before we get started today. All Pro Construction Builders. You can find them at allproconstructionbuilders.com or All Pro Construction Builders on Instagram. I always say hurricane season is around the corner. No, it's not. It's here. I'm surprised we haven't gotten one yet. We still can get the storm windows and the storm doors. Reach out to Danny and his team. If you mention 5 Reasons, you will get a 10% discount on the entire order. Also, if you call Danny, you'll probably end up talking Dolphins because he was texting me during that 70-20 massacre on Sunday. 305-484-4429. That's 305-484-4429. They're based in Dade County, but they also service Monroe counties and Broward County. And we know how hard it is to find a house these days. So maybe you want to renovate your own. They can do that work for you as well. Reach out to All Pro Construction Builders, a state certified general contractor, allproconstructionbuilders.com. Also, we are sponsored here by Prize Picks. Use the code 5, FIVE. Get that initial deposit matched up to $100. The official fantasy sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Forgot to get my picks in yesterday, and then I looked at it. I was like, I like some things on the board. You can play the NFL, NBA when it comes back, MLB, NHL when it comes back, and more at prizepicks.com. Again, use the code 5, get that initial deposit matched up to $100. All right, so this is a Victory Tuesday here. I know some of you are looking for Heat content. There's plenty on the channel right now. 5 on the floor, new episodes yesterday. We did an episode with Michael Grange to talk about the Toronto threat to the Miami Heat for Dame Lillard. But we're going to talk Dolphins here today. I was there on Sunday, 35 points in the first half, 35 points in the second half. Just going to say this. I agreed with Mike McDaniel's decision there at the end. I know that some fans did not. I understand the sentiment. I know how hard it is to, you're setting an all-time record. All the years of the NFL to be at that point and to not do it, I get it. But when he explained it after the game, and I was in the press conference room, and he said, you don't want to feel like you're chasing the points. I feel like if it had just happened, it happened, right? Like you have a running play. Denver wasn't defending anybody at that point. And, you say you had Chris Brooks, go off tackle and just bust another one, and he ends up scoring. Okay. But when you're legitimately setting up to kick a field goal at the end to do it, it feels a little weird. And I understand where he was coming from. I don't think there's any question that he and Tua wanted to put it to the Broncos. They know everything that's been said about them. Obviously, McDaniel has the ties to Denver, was a ball boy. He was not interviewed there. You had Fangio, who was fired from there. You had Butch Berry, who was not only fired, or when he came to Miami, but also laughed at, the offensive line coach of the Dolphins, who, by the way, is like the unheralded MVP at this stage. Look what that line is doing. Tua's not getting touched. They're blowing teams off the line of scrimmage. They're executing everything but snaps, basically. And Connor Williams got hurt in this past game. We'll see if he's going to be healthy going forward. But, the way Austin Jackson is playing, Armstead's unbelievable. When he plays, he's absolutely elite. But, the way the rest of the line around Armstead and Hunt has played so far, he's done a great job. So, yes, they have, personal issues with the Broncos, not to mention the fact that Sean Payton actually went on television and said that Teddy Bridgewater, who didn't even care to play football last year, by the way, okay? I was talking to Heat players in the locker room during the season last year, and I could just say this now. UD follows the Dolphins pretty carefully. Pretty closely. Udonis has them. And he's like, what the fuck's wrong with Teddy? He's like, because I don't know him, but it didn't seem like he wanted to play. And then Jimmy Butler walked by and goes, I don't know anything about football, but I know Teddy Bridgewater sucks. So that's the player. And I know Sean Payton had him in New Orleans and he won a few games, but that's the player that Sean Payton was saying was going to end up beating out Tua last year. They know all that stuff, okay? So they did want to put it on them, but it's another level to set up for a field goal. And by the way, who's to say Jason Sanders would have made it? So you would have ended up with this game where, everybody was jubilant. It was ridiculous. And then it ends on a down note because Jason Sanders, flubs a kick. I mean, who knows? So anyway, I had no issue with McDaniel's explanation on it, and just a little bit of inside information. I exchanged a text with Eric Spoelstra afterwards, who was at the game, and he agreed with not doing it. So if you're a Heat fan here, he agreed with Mike McDaniel. Okay. And if you're a Dolphin fan, we're just telling you the same thing. But anyway, getting back to this and why this is so significant, I would not have. That's what I was just saying, Aaron. I would not have. Once I heard McDaniel's explanation, I would not have. But let's get to where they are, because this has been a very weird 48 hours or so, a little bit less than that, since the Dolphins did that to the Broncos, which is this. We've gone from everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people in the national media and even many Dolphin fans doubting Tua, picking at any perceived weakness, setting standards for him that are not applied to the majority of other quarterbacks in a negative way, to it's all praise now. I mean, like, even the biggest so-called haters on Dolphins Twitter have capitulated and signed their apology forms. The national media, I mean, Ryan Clark, who basically was saying that, I don't know, Tua's ass was too fat to be a good quarterback. He's now come on and essentially, talked about how this is potentially the greatest offense of all time, okay, under Tua. Others have done this. So here's what I want to say. This is the dangerous spot. They all love him now. They all love this team now. And now this team is going back to the place where, honestly, it needs to win more than anywhere else. And almost did last year in the playoffs with a third-string quarterback drafted in the 7th round. But this is the week to prove it. It wasn't last week. I mean, yes, a 50-point win is unbelievable. People will talk about it for generations, particularly if they were there. And those who weren't there will say that they were, just like, that thing that Kenyon Drake did against the Patriots all those years ago. But this is the game that matters. And this is the team that they haven't been able to consistently sort of beat. This is their Patriots, in the sense of, it was the Patriots all those years for the Dolphins that they had to get past in the division. The Bills are good. Now, I think they're overrated in some areas. I think that the burden on Josh Allen sometimes is overly is too much. I don't think that beyond one wide receiver, they have great offensive skill players. And I think some of the players on the defense are a little bit overrated as well. But with that being said, that has been a team that has been consistently there for the last 3 or 4 years, has been knocking on the door, almost beat the Chiefs a couple of years ago to kind of push through the door. And they're the one that the Dolphins had to set their eyes on before this season. Whatever the conversation was about the Jets, and look, I understand what they could have been with Rodgers and what that defense still is, but is basically being undermined by a quarterback in Zach Wilson who does not belong, probably even in the XFL at this point. It was always about the Bills. It was always about the Bills. I thought that the Bills and the Dolphins would be right there for the division this year. I had the Dolphins at 11-6. And I had the Bills at 12-5 or 11-6 as well, somewhere in that area, with the Jets kind of in that 9-8, 10-7 area. This is the team that they got to get past. And so here's the thing about this. It can flip in a second, okay? Tua is the most efficient quarterback in the NFL right now. He's been the best quarterback in the NFL this season. I'm not ready to declare him the best quarterback in the NFL overall, but I've been telling people he's a top 10 quarterback for the past couple of years, and I still am there. And now I think with his processing speed and this offense that's around him and the way that he understands it and the way that he anticipates things and the way that McDaniel has improved. And I asked Tua that question, where is Mike as a play caller right now? And Tua said it's not about the plays they're calling, it's the way they're getting the plays in and how much more efficient Mike has gotten. They are getting to that kind of Walsh, Montana, and I know Sean Payton's an embarrassment after Sunday, but previously it was pretty good. The Payton Breeze kind of thing where they understand each other. Okay, Holmgren, Favre, etc. Where the quarterback and the coach, and at one point Brady Belichick, before that sort of went sour, where the coach and the quarterback are on the same page, and so they're making each other better. And the stuff that McDaniel is doing, the pre-snap stuff, is beyond innovative. I mean, one more bit of insight. what is Spoelstra like? He says, I like watching Mike's offensive plans. Like I mean, you're talking about the best coach in the NBA who is admiring what this coach, this second year head coach in the NFL is doing. Tua and McDaniel are in sync, but now this is the test because last year Tua wasn't there for obviously the playoff game in Buffalo. You're going to get 70-degree weather apparently this weekend, 65 to 70. So the Dolphins don't have any excuses about this. But this is also the place where Mike had trouble getting the plays in. And there were issues at the end of the game with clock management and other things. So how much has he improved? We will see. I think they win this game. I think that this team, especially when you look at it, that they haven't had both Waddle and Armstead in the same game. They're going to get Waddle back this week. We'll see if Jalen Phillips plays. He got nicked up again. Connor Williams obviously is a concern as well. But the Bills are nicked up too. And I just think when you saw what happened in the playoffs last year, they kind of understand how to play against the Bills. They just couldn't finish it because, again, they didn't have their quarterback. And then there was mistakes that were made at the end. I think they can win this game a couple of different ways. One, I don't think that Josh Allen is going to go crazy on them running the ball like he typically has. I think Fangio will have a plan for that to be able to keep him contained to a certain degree. I mentioned the Bills not really having a whole bunch of offensive weapons at this point. Nowhere near as many as the Dolphins do. Okay. I think that they will be able to keep Diggs under control enough. Okay. Xavier Howard has been better this season overall than he was last season. He does look healthier. And again, Holland is playing at a really high level. If you look at the PFF grades right now, he's the best safety in the league. I think they'll be able to control their passing game enough. I don't think Allen's going to be able to get off running the ball. And I think that the weather, which, we talk about a lot with Tua, not being a concern, is a major plus for Miami. And I've said this before, and we mentioned Prize Picks. The safest bet in football right now on Prize Picks is Tua over 6.5 completions in his first 10. The plans that they have for him to start the game, I don't think teams are going to stop them the whole year. I mean, there may be a game or two where they get a 3 and out, but they are so in sync with what they do practice wise, and Mike throws so many different wrinkles into it that the defense is on their heels at the beginning of the game. For the Dolphins, the critical stuff is the second and third quarters when, particularly the second, when things start to get, you go off script a little bit. But the on script stuff early in the game, I think the Dolphins will be able to get off to a good start here. And my overall point is they have to. Because this is the game. Okay? If you win this game in Buffalo, even though it's early in the season, and you're talking about taking that tiebreak for now into later in the year when you can get the Bills at home, you look at the Dolphins' schedule, it is starting to look pretty favorable. Some of the concerns you had early about some of these games, I mean, those 2 Jets games don't look anywhere near as difficult as they did before. And we could talk about whether the Chargers, Patriots, and Broncos have good records, and they don't overall. But to say that you were going to go 3-0 when you had to go out to when you had to play in New England in a national TV game, which we know that the Dolphins typically struggle with, when you had to go out to Los Angeles for the first game of the year, I don't know that most people would have had them at 3-0 at this stage. So if you can get this one, this schedule starts to set up for you really nicely. And that will matter as they go forward because I think that this team is going to have a tremendous home field advantage this year, again, because of the way that they started, the way that the fans are engaged in it. And so, I guess we could say this every week, but this is the prove it game for Tua and the Dolphins. Again, whether they won by 10, whether they won by 30, whether they won by 50, we thought that they were going to beat that Broncos team. It's not a good team. It needs a complete and total overhaul. And it does seem to a certain degree like they kind of quit as the game went on, and even some of the Dolphins players mentioned that. But this team in Buffalo is not going to quit, obviously. This team understands, I think, and I think they've gotten the Bills' attention now. So you had a couple things happen. One is the Bills got right last week, or this past Sunday, and the other is when you beat a team 70-20, everybody in the league is going to take notice. And all the Dolphins are going to hear for the next few days is how great they are, and this is the greatest offense since the greatest show on turf. We call it the greatest show on surf, by the way. We have that shirt on our website. And, You can't let that get to your head at this point. They have to approach this with the same mentality that it seems like they've approached everything coming out of training camp, which is, a very Miami Heat approach to apply the two teams together. Okay. Nobody believes in us. Everybody doubts Tua. Nobody respects us. The Bills are the anointed Super Bowl champion contenders. In fact, I think in some sports books, they were projected to win the Super Bowl this year. And I believe actually that was the case last year as well. That's the approach that they need to take to this. And yes, as Aaron says, revenge on their minds for sure, just like they did, I think, personally against some folks on the Broncos this past Sunday. On the offensive side, how do they win this game? They got to stay with the running game. To me, the most, other than the offensive line playing at this level, which I don't think anybody anticipated, and so far, credit to Chris Greer for that. To me, the most positive development for the Dolphins this year is that Mike McDaniel seems to want to run the ball. They're going to need it more in November and December and maybe January than they need it now, but they do need to run the ball effectively in this game. And again, I think they will. They're not going to get 4 touchdowns from the rookie again. But it is clear at this point that they can get to the second level against these defenses. They've done it now in all 3 games. Mostert looks terrific. You got to keep him healthy, so you mix in other guys, but you can still give him 15 carries. He's running through tackles. Sometimes they're not even getting to him before he gets to the second level. But when he does, he's made the first guy either miss or more likely he's kind of gone through him. So this is the game. We'll see how it plays out over the course of the week in terms of what things are said between the two teams. I expect the Dolphins to be humble about it. I expect them to say we haven't done anything yet. I don't think they'll give the Bills any, sort of bulletin board material or anything like that. But I think they know. They knew in the locker room, okay, this Denver team we beat, they're not going to be there at the end. We had one of those days where everything broke right. I mean, to score 10 touchdowns, okay, and on a day where they gave Mike McDaniel actually went for it in his own 34 and missed on 4th down. Remember that? 4 straight runs in that situation. Nobody was talking about that anymore. To score 10 touchdowns and not even have to settle for a field goal in any of those situations, I don't think we'll ever see that again in NFL history. The Dolphins did something historic on Sunday. This Sunday, they need to do something important. All right, thanks for joining on Starting 5. We'll start to do more of these as we go forward. Reach out to All Pro Construction Builders, allproconstructionbuilders.com. Prize Picks, use that code 5. For all of your Messi content, it's here on the channel. Our guys at Messi and Company. Also, a great episode of Six Rings Canes went up last night as well. Check out Louis Sung's work on the Dolphins. It's here all the time. And also, our hockey programming is starting. Manny's part of that as a producer. We brought in Colby Guy. He covers the team along with Alex Baumgartner. They'll be here on the channel as well. So plenty of content. Join our Better Edge contest as well. Everybody have a good day. I like the Dolphins on Sunday.